Hey, what's happening? My name is D, and welcome back to another episode of Book Reviews with a Regular Dude. Today, we're going to be talking about Nightbane by Aster. First and foremost, probably sound a little weird right now. I'm just getting over being sick, lost my voice this week, but now we back, baby, so let's get into it. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do like a spoiler-free, sort of cohesive review, or if I wanted to do a rant review where I just like go through the notes I took while I was reading this. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to start with a quick spoiler-free review and then move into a spoilery rant review type of deal. So Nightbane is a sequel to Lightlark, and I haven't seen a ton of conversation happening about it, which I thought was kind of weird because by the time I got onto Book Talk and BookTube, there was a fair amount of conversation about Lightlark, but I haven't seen a lot of videos talking about Nightbane one way or the other, It came out the same day as Iron Flame, which is another sequel to a big kind of book talk sensation book. And Iron Flame had a lot of buzz about it, never mind Rebecca Yaros's sort of like political controversy, because I don't need to talk about that anymore. But also, like, there are people who are fans of Fourth Wing who are like disillusioned with Iron Flame. And I haven't seen any TikToks or whatever of people talking about Nightbane one way or the other. So there's this part of me that wonders if like people just didn't like it and they don't talk about it, or if I just don't have Alex Aster. Like, if what if every Alex Aster fan has just blocked me and I don't know that, or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, spoiler-free review. I'm gonna try to do this as quickly as I can because I have a lot of notes to go through if I'm gonna do the rant review, and I don't want to do another 2-part video because I have another book that I want to talk to before the holidays are over. Come on, D. So for the spoiler-free review, I'm going to do like a rapid-fire 4 C's. For those of you who don't know or don't remember, the 4 C's are character, conflict, context, and craft. So let's start with character. Just like with Lightlark, the only like point of view we get is Isla Crowns, and so we spend a lot of time in her head. And like, this might be a weird thing to say, but when I finished Nightbane, I had to like question my own definition of character development, because this character definitely develops into something. But usually when I think of character development, I usually think of like personal growth and like, I guess, becoming a better person, or becoming like, or being better off than when they started. And I'm realizing that maybe that's not always how a character develops, because there's like villain origin stories, learning how a morally gray character becomes morally gray from being like maybe like really optimistic or something like that. And so I had to like ponder that afterwards, because my first thought was like, oh, there's like no character development. I'm like, no, there kind of is. She just like turns out different than I would like she's not a hero on a journey just yet, or this hero's journey isn't a straight line. And so that was interesting, I guess. Like, I didn't love it. I will say that like whatever this journey is, I still think that it kind of lacks a bit of substance and a little bit of depth. And I understand that this is young adult, but I don't think that that's an excuse to not go deep, because young adults, like teens and young adults, have like a lot of deep thoughts and deep feelings that deserve to be explored and represented in media and taken seriously. Because I think one of the biggest frustrations that young people have in society, like, I say this like I'm super old, I'm not, but like, I used to work with a lot of youth, and one thing that a lot of them would complain to me about is, when I say work with a lot of youth, I mean I was a youth worker, and then I am also like a creative writing teacher, and I work with mostly teenagers. That's what I mean. Anyways, one of the things that a lot of them complain about in either job that I'm talking about is like not being taken seriously. Like, they're frustrated that they have all these like deep thoughts and emotions, and they aren't taken seriously by the adults in their lives. When I've given negative reviews of other books, people will usually like kind of talk about it being like, because it's YA, that's why the writing is bad or something like that. And I think that that's super disrespectful to young people, just because it's meant for a younger audience doesn't mean that it can't be of substance and well crafted. I say all this to say that Isla Crown's development and her arc is not a straight line, and so that is interesting. I don't know how unique it is because I haven't read a lot of things that I think that these books reference or are inspired by, but I still think that it's kind of lacking in a bit of depth. I don't find this character likable really at all, and I have a very hard time rooting for her. And we spend a lot of time of this book like listening to her self-reflect, but also not going very deep, which is what I was talking about before, where I think that there's definitely like an arc, but it's not explored very deeply. It's almost like she doesn't want to go there in her own mind, so we're not going there in the text. And I find that kind of boring and disengaging. We get a little bit more backstory and understanding of Oro, the king of Lightlark, the grumpy golden boy that she chose at the end of the first book. Not enough for me to give a shit. Same thing with a character named Azul, who's the leader of Skyling. He's used for more than just scapegoating now, which is great. But we still don't get to know much about him. We don't really get to know any of these characters all that much. Okay, let's move on to conflict. The threats and challenges that Isla faces in this book are much more active, I would say. Like, there's a threat that is coming for the good guys in this book. And so it feels like the stakes are, like they're trying to raise the stakes and make things more deadly and more tense. They spend a lot of time, like there's a deadline for when everything's supposed to hit the fan. And so they spend a lot of that time kind of preparing and trying to get ready and trying to rally allies and stuff like that. And there's this kind of clocks ticking sort of thing that's going on. And so that's kind of how the plot moves forward. It's like, what if we tried this? What if we prepared in this way? And there's also like kind of braided timelines. Like Isla keeps having these flashbacks that dive deeper into like memories that were taken away by Grimshaw. Is it Grimshaw? Yeah, I think it's Grimshaw. Every time I read that name, I think Grimjow because there's a bad guy in Bleach, the anime, called Grimjow. That's what that is. Sorry. And there's a lot of stuff that happens in the flashbacks where like Isla almost dies. Like almost every flashback, like she's in danger. And so it feels like there's like a lot of tension and action happening in the book. When it comes to this stuff happening in the present, it's a lot of preparing for one big conflict, like one big fight. And in that way, it feels like a lot of like setup. And I'm not feeling a lot of the tension. And a lot of the stuff that they're trying to do is successful in one way or another. And so it's like, I don't know. I just kind of had a hard time giving a crap about what was happening in the present. And I also didn't care that much about what was happening in the past because I already know that Isla, like, survives, you know? So let's move on to context. And that's like politics and world building and stuff like that. And the world of Lightlark, I guess, is expanded upon. You know, new creatures are introduced, new laws of magic, and whole new like worlds are introduced. None of it's explained super well, so it just feels like we're adding stuff to create tension and create excitement, but none of it's really explained. And so I found that very frustrating. You know, at one point there's like creatures who like there's a snake that turns into a lady, or a lady that can turn into a snake, and I was just like, yep, guess there's people who can do that now. And then lastly, real quick, let's move on to craft. Like, I think there's a slight improvement in the writing in Nightbane from the writing in Lightlark, but there are still kind of like lines that don't make a ton of sense, and an attempt to sound poetic and pretty in purple. But if you really think about what was said, you're like, wait, what? And there's a lot of like repetition of phrases that sticks out to me because I think, you know, I'll get more into it in the Rant review, but I think it's just like Alex Aster kind of decided this is what I'll say when a character does this. And then I'm going to say that every time, but they do it a lot, so it gets really repetitive and kind of annoying. Again, I think that there were less lines that really stuck out to me where I was like, what the fuck is this compared to like Lightlark? But it's still not great. So it's like, it's fine. So it's like, it's not horrible, but it's still not good. In my very first review on this channel, I said that I thought that Fourth Wing was equivalent to like a Little Caesar's cheese pizza, and I would say the same thing about Nightbane. So now I'm moving on to my Rant review, where I just kind of read through the notes I took while I was reading this. So the book picks up like literally right after Lightlark ends. So Isla opens a secret door in the Wildling Palace. When she opens the door with the crown that is the key, something just blasts the door back shut. And I think she gets knocked out and then has a vision of the world ending. So Isla's pretty down on herself that the vault won't open, and Aro is the king of Lightlark and the grumpy golden boy of this book, and he suggests that maybe she needs to master her powers before she can open the vault for whatever reason. So for her to train and like master her wildling powers, she'd have to talk to her guardians about it, and she's like, no, I don't want to do that because, fuck them. And then I wrote, but don't worry, because she's the special, she'll figure out a convenient way to get around this obstacle. I don't blame her for not wanting to talk to somebody who helped kill her parents, though. That seems really fair. Grumpy Golden Boy offers to teach Isla, and she ponders if she loves him or what does that mean. They share a magic power now because of this like love bond that they have, and so that's supposed to mean that they're in love. But what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. I'm kind of ashamed of myself for writing that note. I think Isla has another vision, and she tells Grumpy Golden Boy about it, and he automatically assumes that the book's edgy Shadow Boo, who is a Grimshaw, is going to start a war over Isla. Like, you dumped me, so now I'm going to kill everybody type of war, because men be doing men stuff, am I right? So Isla is training to use her powers, and then there's this line that stuck out to me, I guess because I wrote it down. Training used to be hammered into her like gemstones in a blade's hilt. And then I wrote, Aster is using a lot of blade imagery, just so we don't forget that Isla can fight with knives because she's a cool knife girl. Yeah. Isla doesn't really want to train her powers, and I found that really strange because her finding a way to get her powers was like her main goal in the book. Like, she wanted to find the bond breaker to, like, I think break her friend's curse and get her powers or something like that. And then I wrote, is this because the events of Lightlark were so traumatic that she like is struggling? Or I guess like at the time I think I was thinking like, oh, maybe she like blames the fact, like blames what happened in Lightlark on the fact that she wanted powers, so now she's like, yo, fuck powers or something like that. I was pretty off, but whatever. And there's a floating feast. Dress descriptions, there's a lot in Lightlark, and it seems like there's going to be a lot in this book too. Ugh, because I kind of felt like the dress descriptions were sort of filler, because nothing else in Lightlark was described as vividly as the dresses. Grumpy Golden Boy is good looking because he's not dying now, and Esla wonders if that's what love is. Cleo, the mean girl from the last book, isn't there, and that's so suspicious. So I guess maybe we're going to do the same thing where we just assume that she's guilty of everything bad that happens because fuck her. People are suspicious about how Isla broke the curse, which is fair because they all watched her suck at the Centennial. And then my next note is, never mind, Cleo declared war, or said fuck all y'all publicly. So I don't remember the scene like bar for bar, but like her and her representative were like, yeah, we're leaving. And we know that y'all need us, and like y'all aren't Lightlark without us, but we're gonna bounce because this realm is doomed. And I think the Moonlings were like ready to fight or something. Then Isla has a drink with Azul, the Skyling. Fuck, these names are dumb. I think I was talking about the name of the realms, because I really hate like Skyling, Moonling, Sunling, like all that. I don't like it. The only one I don't mind is Starling, because that's a bird And so they're drinking and they're hanging out, and then Isla's like, I don't know how to be a ruler. And Isla's like, girl, you're 20. And then says, like, when I was 20, I was busy partying and being selfish. And she's like, yeah, I deserve that. Isla goes back to the wildling Newland, and they still look like they're all dying and shit. Forgot the wildlings can have animal companions, and it's still not fair that one guardian has a hummingbird and the other has a panther. And also somebody has a capybara. And apparently I was really mad because I did this in all caps, but what island can have panthers and capybaras in the same place, bro? And I think my brain was like, that climate doesn't make a ton of sense, but I actually don't know shit about capybaras, so maybe I'm wrong. I think the variation of animal companions that these wildlings can have is really funny to me because, yeah, somebody gets a hummingbird and then somebody gets a fucking panther. Like, that's not fair. So Isla goes back to Lightlark for a coronation to be declared the ruler of Starling Realm because she killed, what was her real name? Her fake name was Celeste. It's a great pun. And then, was it Aurora? Yeah, Aurora. Sorry, I didn't write it down. Should have. So she goes back to be declared the ruler of the two realms. And then the whole place is attacked by, like, winged dragon-looking things. And one goes to eat her and then looks at her and then just doesn't. So people are like, yo, she did that shit. And she's like, nah, that was obviously Edgy Shadow Boo. Even though I wrote probably not in brackets there. And then this isn't a plot point, but this line jumped out at me. Oro's eyes were pure intensity. Oro's eyes either are intensity or burn with intensity so much in this book that it's like really redundant or repetitive. And I think that, like, something that I've sort of realized is that a lot of, like, books will do that where a specific character, their eyes will burn with blank or something, and that's like what their character does or what that character does. And I think that, like, I need a little variation. I don't think it should be a different phrase every single time because that it'll start to get silly and contrived. And also, I think when it's the same one every time, it's boring. Like, I've never read Twilight, but I remember when it was coming out, a girl in my media studies class told me that she hated it because every time Edward was upset, his mouth was a hard line or something like that. And it's just that, like, when you use a phrase so much that it starts to aggravate people, I think it's overdone. Isla asks Oro, to train her to use her powers, and then he takes her to the monsters that try to eat her in the last book, and asks the chief of the monsters to untangle her powers, and he does, and Isla faints. Isla has a flashback to when she first met Edgy Shadow Boo, or Grim, or Grimbo, or whatever. She, like, portals to Nightshade, and she gets chased by some guards, and she accidentally gets, like, lined up. Like, somebody's like, get over here, you fool, and then she ends up as part of a lineup for, like, potential wives or concubines for Shadow Boo or whatever. And then he, like, picks her, they go start to get busy, and then she stabs him. There was a line in here, his lips were a key unlocking things, and I was like, yeah, it's a pretty okay line. There's some more training and stuff like that. Oreo, Grumpy Golden Boy, asks his childhood best friend. I did it again. It's supposed to be Oro. Anyway, the king asks his childhood best friend / advisor to help teach Isla, or to help Isla by teaching wildling survival skills. So Isla learns to control her powers, kind of like, we're getting somewhere. And apparently animal companions are called bonded, which not crazy about, but whatever. And so, like, to get a bonded, you need to do like a wildling bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. It's like a ceremony where you're dropped off in the middle of a swamp and you, like, hunt an animal. And if you're the ruler, you need to wound the animal. But the animal chooses you and it lets you wound it. And I don't get that at all. Like, if the animal chooses you, just, I don't know, let it, like, test you some other way. I don't know. It's like, I don't like it. It feels really contrived. Like I get needing to test your skills or something, like to prove that you're worthy of an animal companion, but if it's about like being chosen, I feel like there's got to be a better way than just like letting you shoot it with an arrow. You know what I'm saying? Like that seems weird. I didn't like it. Like I was like, I get that there's gotta be, but it doesn't even gotta be. I get the need for a ceremony, like if it's a rite of passage in a culture and all that stuff. But I think just what it was very strange to me. Isla gets chosen by a black leopard named Lynx. Turns out that Lynx was her mother's panther before her. Isla admits to Oro, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, but admits to the king that she's been seeing Grim. Not like seeing him, but like hallucinating him or something. Isla trains more, and she says, she finally says, "I love you" to the king, and they kiss for the first time. And then this line, she could taste him. He was summer and heat and fire. And like, I get what the line is trying to imply here, but heat isn't really a taste. It's a feeling. And fire, I don't think it has a flavor. Pretty sure if you have fire in your mouth, the flavor is pain, you know? And summer doesn't have a distinctive taste. And so I just find like some of that atmospheric writing doesn't work for me because it doesn't make sense. And I feel like there's a way to write atmospheric, poetic shit and still make sense. You can say it tastes like summer, but then you have to actually name tastes or something like that, or tastes that you associate with summertime. You know what I'm saying? But just to say he tasted like summer because he tasted like heat, that's not a thing. Love is a wildfire best grown in secret. That's a better line because it explains what it means right away. So Isla tells the king that she wants to throw a wildling festival, I think on Lightlark, to like introduce the wildlings to Lightlark or something like that. And then after that, they have their first like romantic spicy scene, and like credit is where credit's due. I think there's more like innuendos, and it's a little bit more romantic. So it like my only comparison was Rebecca Yarros's spicy scenes because I don't read spicy books. And this, I think this was better. You know, like credit is where credit's due. I think it was better, and it felt pretty like, you know, if this is meant for like late teens, feels pretty age appropriate. It's not like, you know, fade to black or whatever. But it's also not, you know, just saying the word cock and clit and fuck over and over again. The festival happens, and then Grimbo interrupts and is like, yo, I'm going to kill everybody. You got a month. Cleo tells Isla that the Oracle wants to talk and then bounces. The Oracle says that Isla's repressed memories are the key to saving Lightlark. There's a flashback, and this is where, from this point on, it's kind of like a dance between what's happening in the present and the flashbacks. So there's a flashback where I think Grim strikes up a deal with Isla where he is gonna like help her at the Centennial, and she's gonna help him search for an enchanted sword that I guess is like evil Excalibur. But it's very conveniently cursed so that any nightshade that tries to use their powers around it'll sense that and then disappear and teleport somewhere else. I didn't like that because I felt like it just fit too well. You know what I mean? Back in the present, Isla wants to know who among the Starlings is best at wielding power, and it's a little girl named Cinder. And there was this line, I think her skill surpassed somebody more than many multiples of her age. And that was a really, really convoluted way to say, yo, she's a prodigy. Like I said before, I think that the writing in Nightbane is a slight improvement on Lightlark, but it still has some of those same sort of like, what? Moments? And that was one of them for me, where I was just like, you could have just said like, yo, she's a prodigy, or yo, she's way more advanced than people who are like centuries old. There's another flashback. They raid a thieves guild looking for the sword, or looking for somebody who stole the sword or something. And then Grim apparently trained Isla how to fight, you know, a little bit, taught her some things, but I feel like this is meaningless because he also wipes her memories. Like that was revealed in Lightlark. So I'm like, what was the point of that? What is the point of this scene? You know, because it's not helpful. And these flashbacks are Isla like recovering these memories, but then we never see like her putting what she learned from him into practice now that she remembers. So it really feels pointless and meaningless, and that was part of like, and that was part of why I said like they're Aster's showing us these things, and it's like it seems like it's going to make things more interesting, but if you remember the context and see how it doesn't really have any impact like down the timeline, it's like, okay, then what's the point? And so I don't feel that tension properly. Back in the present, a starling child is attacked by a creature, and Isla fights it. It's a giant snake, and then it turns into a lady, which is like kind of cool, but I do think that there's too many different magic powers being introduced without any explanation about how magic really works in this world, to the point where like you just kind of have to roll with anything that happens, but then it feels like anything could be like a deus ex machina because of that. Like Isla could start growing wings and breathing fire herself, and I would just have to accept that that's like a thing she can do. So there's another flashback. They find the sword thief, and Isla, like he's hanging out at a bar or like a strip club equivalent, and Isla's like, no, Grim is like, yo, you should go use your wildling temptress powers on him, and she gets mad because she doesn't have those powers, but she also like doesn't want him to think that she doesn't have powers because that's a secret that she has, right? So she's like, okay, fine, I'm gonna go use my wildling powers that I don't have to tempt him. And then we jump back to the present, and Isla tries to remove this necklace that Grimbo gave her, and she can't because it's magic, so it's like stuck on her, which that's terrifying. The Skylings want to flee because like Nightshade and Moonling are gonna attack, and it's like there's gonna be a war. And Isla makes a weird speech to try to inspire them, and it wasn't inspiring at all. I feel like speech scenes in any media always kind of make me cringe unless it's like a really good speech. Like Jeff Winger from Community always has like, I'm like, okay, that's a decent point, but I can tell that you're just manipulating people. And then Iroh from Avatar The Last Airbender, literally anything he says, I'm like, yeah, that's the truth of the universe. And then there's another flashback, and I noted that I realized that they're always describing the flashbacks as like she collapses or falls into a memory. And it's like, however Alex Aster decided to describe something, like drawing a puddle of stars, eyes burning with intensity, falling into a memory, that's what they're going to do every single time they do it, and they do it a lot, so it gets really repetitive and annoying. So in this flashback, I guess Isla and Grimbo are going to meet up to go on another mission to like find the sword or keep looking for the sword, and Grimbo is in armor. And the way it's described is really clunky because it says like spikes on his metal covered shoulders. And there's something about that that just feels redundant. Like Grimbo teaches Isla that pain makes you powerful. So in the present, she inflicts pain on herself to boost things. And Grumpy Golden Boy is like, no, don't do that. And then my next note is like, I'm willing to bet money that she keeps doing it. Isla visits her evil bestie's old room and throws a tantrum. I mean, it's not really a tantrum. Like, I get why she's mad, but she does freak out and smash a bunch of shit. And I had a note here. I'm not really sure what was going on, but I think Isla is getting hooked on using her Nightshade powers. And I think that's part of like the arc or the corruption arc or whatever is going on here, where like she doesn't feel like she's a good person, so whatever, I don't know. Then we have another flashback. Isla crashes a Nightshade ball and almost gets like assaulted, like she gets roofied, and then Grimbo like kills the guy who roofied her. And then he says, I won't touch you until you beg me, and you will beg me. And I get that that's meant to be like sexy, and he's like the bad boy and all that stuff, but it didn't do it for me. I just find it really cringy. In the present, people ambush Isla, and one of them is like her starling second in command, and they talk about how they like, so before she can kill them, they say like, we think that you're immune to curses, and that's your flare. When a flare is like a special extra power that some people have. and they think that she's like the key to breaking the tie that people have to their rulers. So like I guess because like if a ruler of a realm dies, all the people die as well, or something like that. Uh, and so they want to like cut ties with their rulers so they can just be free. And apparently there was another curse that made the power system work like that. So like this ancient king made it so that rulers have the most power and everyone's tied to them so that no one can kill the rulers and kind of like assert their like dominance, which I guess is like classism or something. I don't know. But then a scary night creature says that like because Isla has both wildling and nightshade powers, she represents hope because she's the most specialist of specials. And I don't know. I don't always love how chosen one a lot of book series are. You know what I mean? Like I read this one book recently. It was called Bonesmith, and for a big chunk of the book, I thought that like who the main character was or like their origin, like they would just be getting into shenanigans and like going on this adventure because of who they are as a person and like their personality or whatever. But it turns out they're like a magical nepo baby. Sorry, spoilers for Bonesmith. My bad. And it's kind of the same thing here, where it's like I don't know. I just have a really hard time giving a shit about people who just like. It's kind of the same shit here. And I'm just kind of tired of magical nepo babies being the characters that we tell these stories through. Because I think it would be interesting to have somebody who maybe isn't the most powerful being the protagonist of a story. But this just like never really happens. There's another flashback. Grimbo reveals that the evil Excalibur helps you control the Drex, which is what those winged monsters that attack the ball in the present are. In the present, Isla thinks that she can use the love bond that Grimbo and her have to weaken him by like stealing his powers long enough for them to like kill him, I think, or lock him up. I think they want to kill him. Another flashback, Grimbo and Isla go to a Skyling festival in disguise. The author throws in an egg reference, which I feel like was a subtle middle finger, because there's like a hot air balloon that looks like a light blue egg. That's the only egg reference, but it does feel personal. Back in the present, Isla feels bad that Oro loves her because she's not good enough for him and he's just too good to be true. And then in another flashback, it's revealed that Grimbo knew Isla's dad, because her dad was Nightshade, and that he, I think, was a general for Grimbo or something, and then he betrayed him and then met her mother, and he was going to set Isla up. Grimbo was going to set Isla up to die, because in order to break the curse on the sword so he could use it, she would have to die because her flair is to like break curses or something like that. And there's an old world where all the realms came from, and the portal to the old world is in the Wildling Palace. That's what the vault was. So then in the present, there's the day has arrived. Nightshade and Moonling have come to attack. There's a big fight. The two love interests go to battle, and Isla uses the love bond to weaken Grimbo. And then in another flashback, it's not very well explained, but basically, I think Isla's Nightshade powers awaken, and she almost kills everybody. So the vision that she's had is actually a memory of her going berserk with her Nightshade powers and Grimbo stopping her. And in order to save her, he bound their life forces together. So if he dies, so does she. And then it's revealed that Grimbo and Isla have been married this entire time. And it's not like this crazy reveal, like in a good way, but it is a crazy reveal. And the whole memory loss thing is Isla begged him to do it because she didn't want to remember her losing control and hurting a bunch of people or whatever. So like, you know, this war, this battle is going on, and she basically like says to Oro like, yo, I'm sorry, I love you, but I love him too, and then disappears with Grimbo, and that's the end of the book. I said this recently on a Rant review for my patrons, but I really, really can't stand like open-ended endings, because, you know, like this book is a decent thickness, you know, so there's a lot to go through, and for it to not have an end in and of itself, because I think a book, like a second in a series, can end and have its own contained story and also set up the conclusion for the whole saga. And the fact that this doesn't do that kind of sucks. Like, I'm not so invested that I'm like, oh no, I need to know what happens next. But I feel like anybody who is excited about this may feel like now they got to wait, you know, a year, 2 years or whatever, probably 6 months to 2 years or something before they know what happens. And I just feel like that's kind of shitty for the reader. It's like, maybe this is a hot take, but I think that second books in a series should be able to stand on their own and also set up the next thing. And I do think that the twists and the reveals at the end are meant for shock value, but they don't like change everything. Like, I don't think anything's really impacted by it, and it doesn't connect a bunch of dots or make things make sense. If anything, they make some things dumber to me. And I don't know. Like, at the end, I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, the writing, and the way it ends, like, there's so many things not addressed or explained, and you're just left with so many questions that it does feel sort of like, it leaves me with the impression that the writer had no intention of ever answering those questions, and they're like, oh, that's future Alex Aster's problem. And I don't think that that's good. Like, obviously, the things you're setting up for the whole saga, yeah, you're going to answer that at the end. But also, it's like, what the fuck was up with the snake lady? You know? What the fuck was up with this? What the fuck was up with that? And we don't get those answers, and I do think that that's sort of sloppy, and it makes for, like, you have so much to answer in the third or fourth book, and it's just not good. It was like a boring, jerky ride to nowhere. And so, you know, at the end of my reviews, I usually answer 3 questions. Was it good? Not really, no. Did I enjoy it? No. Would I recommend it? No. I think I rolled my eyes and shook my head a lot more with Lightlark, and so I would have to say, like, you know, this is slightly better, but it ends in such an unsatisfying way. Not that I expected to be satisfied with this book, but it is just so, like, and nothing really happened, even though a bunch of stuff happened, that I'm just like, this isn't good. But yeah, I guess I'll be back for the third or fourth book. I don't know how many books are supposed to be in this series, but I guess I'll see what happens next, and I'll let you know so you don't have to read it too. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you made it to the end. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. If you want to support the channel, support what I'm trying to do here, you can tip me /buy me a coffee. And if you want to support the channel on a more regular basis and gain exclusive access to content you won't find anywhere else, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon. There you'll get 1 extra Rant review video per month and the continuation of my Shadow and Bone reaction series. That's the show, not the book. You also gain access to my private Discord server, the Don't Fret Club Discord server. We talk about writing and books and anime, D&D. People are sharing their artwork, and just it's really cool. I'm having a lot of fun, just like kind of laying the foundation for this community, and we would love to have you as a part of it. So if any of that sounds exciting or interesting to you, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon. And if Patreon's not really your thing and you still want more content from me, make sure you consider subscribing to my second channel, Don't Fret 64. There I'm talking about anime and manga. Right now I'm reacting to Haikyuu, and I'm going to start reviewing manga in the next couple of weeks. I keep saying that I'm going to do it, and then life keeps kicking my ass. So we'll see what happens. But however you choose to support me, I deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is D. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out. Doesn't feel good.